guys, Hunter here. I hope everyone is staying healthy. I want to let you guys know that despite the technology barrier we have between us, I feel like my group and I are pretty prepared to give you guys a great presentation. So a little bit of background before we get into it. My part of the presentation was going to be leading an activity before the presentation, and this activity was supposed to give kind of set the stage for what was to come. So I just want to let you guys know that even though obviously we're not going to be performing the activity in front of the whole class where you would get that face-to-face instruction, I think I can do a pretty good job of explaining it. I'm going to try my best, and I think you guys are going to be able to understand what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I made a Google Slides. I feel like that's a little bit easier so you can see what I'm talking about as I'm explaining it. Okay. Alrighty, so the title of our book, it is Gender and Disability, and specifically women's experiences with those disabilities in the Middle East. So, and then we have our group members, there's me, and then we have Karlee, Maeoly, Kate, and Dill. You're gonna hear from them in just a minute. Okay, so here's the title of our book, what that looks like. Our author is Miss Lena Abu Habib. Okay, so what was the activity that we were gonna do? We were gonna have a puzzle game to open up the instruction, and we didn't really go over what type of puzzle. I don't think the type of puzzle really matters, but it was just going to be a puzzle, a fairly simple one. And so with the game, we were going to have two participants. One of them was going to be female and one of them was going to be male. And yes, this part actually does matter. I'll get to that in a little bit. But so far we have two puzzles and two participants. The puzzles are the exact same. However, what the participants are allowed to have is not. So the male was going to be perfectly able-bodied. He was going to be, ready to go do his puzzle. However, we were going to give the girl participant disabilities, and that is where the relevance to our book comes in. It's because our book is all about, the disabilities that women face in the Middle East and how she is treated when she has those disabilities, the kind of care that she receives, if any, how easy it is to access that care, all of that, which we're going to get into later and which my other group members are going to discuss. But for my purpose in the game, the female participant is given disabilities. So what kind of disabilities is she given? Let's see. So first, we were going to give her a blindfold. And this blindfold is going to be representing the disability of blindness. And so obviously, if you're trying to, kind of get a puzzle together, no matter how simple the puzzle is, if you're blindfolded, your eyesight's obstructed, it's going to be pretty difficult to put those together. So if your eyesight is gone, you're going to rely on your hands and trying to fill those pieces and fit those pieces together. Well, we are going to put oven mitts over her hands. So now not only can she not see, but her hand movement is restricted. And so that's very difficult. She has several barriers up already that are going to be very difficult to overcome. And the guy is just moving quickly. He is perfectly able-bodied, and he may already be done with this puzzle by now, honestly. And then we give her earplugs, and her earplugs are going to muffle the sound around her. So this disability is obviously deafness. It's not going to completely cancel out the sound that she can hear because they're just, little rubber earplugs, but it is going to do a good job at muffling the sound, which I believe will provide a distraction, if anything, while she's trying to concentrate and figure out her puzzle. She has kind of muffled sound around her. And also it's going to serve as a barrier when the audience may try and help her because they see her struggling. So they may try and be like, hey, you can use this piece or that piece. She's not going to be able to hear because she has that disability. Okay, and then with the male, obviously he's perfectly able-bodied. So he's already got a huge advantage, but that's not all. We're going to also give him the help of the audience. He is allowed to use them. And if he can't figure something out, they're there to help. He has them to rely on. He's dependent upon them. That's a huge factor when it comes to discussing how the Middle East treats the gender inequality in just a minute. So we have the female participant who is blind, she's deaf, and she has restricted hand movement. And then we have the perfectly able-bodied male participant who also has the help of the audience. Who do you guys think has the advantage? I think it's pretty obvious that the male in this case has the advantage, and the female is kind of left in the dust. So let's explain the significance of the game and kind of the importance of what we just learned. So in the Middle East, women are seen as less than males. Men are kind of put on like a pedestal up here, and women are down here. They're seen as subservient, and they're supposed to, just provide help to the men. They're just the men's kind of submissive resources whenever they need them. And when you have a woman who is already seen as less than, and you throw in disabilities, you can only imagine how she's treated. It's not right at all. And that's what this whole book is about. This whole book is about how women with disabilities are treated over in the Middle East, and the resources that they are denied to, the lack of access that they have to the aid that they need to survive, all that good stuff. And I think our game did a pretty good job at kind of showing us, the differences and the disadvantages. We have a male who is perfectly able-bodied. He already has a huge advantage at life. And we also gave him the help of the audience. And that was kind of to show you guys how the government and how the Middle East treats men. Even if men do have a disability, they have an extremely easier time accessing the resources that they need to make their lives easier, as well as the aid that they need to survive, versus women who are denied tons of times. And if they do have access, it's extremely hard to get to. So I hope you guys kind of enjoyed that activity. I hope it gave you guys a good kind of outlook on what you're about to learn about. And I hope it wasn't too bad listening to me and seeing me over a camera. But thank you guys for listening.
Hey everybody,
and, yeah.
In case you forgot, my name is Dill, and for our presentation, I'm going to be doing this section on terminology. And so what I'll be talking about is, just to recap, the book is called Gender and Disability, Women's Experiences in the Middle East, and it's written by Lena Abu Habib. So in the book, Abu Habib never straightforwardly defined the terms, and so I will. What could go wrong? It's just a white male who's perfectly able-bodied who's going to do this for her. So I want this mostly to be kind of a setup to the larger conversation that we'll be having through our presentation. And I think it'll be easier to understand the concepts we're talking about and all the issues we're covering if we sort of talk about like the fundamental terms that underlie everything we'll be talking about. And I think the reason terminology itself is so important is that it does reflect meaning in a sense. Terminology is kind of a summary and description of the things that we see around us, but in a sense, it also makes meaning. So whenever you're able to create words that explain linguistic gaps, you're able to give people a backboard through which they can explore new ideas, and so you can make meaning out of terminology. And so to jump right into it from there, the first term we can talk about is gender. And it's impossible to talk about the term gender without also talking about the term sex. And so to understand the distinction, I think we should start with sex, and then sex is kind of something that's going to be more innate. It's the characteristics that people are born with that are typically separated into male or female depending on the chromosomes that they have, but